In the heart of ancient worship stood a figure clothed in sacred garments, bearing on his chest a square plate inlaid with 12 radiant stones. Each stone was unique, each engraved with the name of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. The high priest carried this breastplate before God, a physical symbol of intercession and representation. Yet beyond the historical and religious weight of the artifact lies a question that has stirred the imagination for centuries. Could these 12 stones also point beyond earth toward the heavens? The book of Exodus describes the breastplate with intricate care. Gold settings held 4 rows of 3 stones, with names inscribed like seals. The text does not explain why these particular stones were chosen, nor does it elaborate on the meaning behind their arrangement. Still, the consistent appearance of the number 12, 12 tribes, 12 stones, suggests an order that may reflect more than tribal heritage. 12 also defines the signs of the zodiac, the celestial constellations known to mark time and season. References in Scripture to constellations like Orion and Pleiades found in Job, or to the stars marking signs and seasons in Genesis 1 verse 14, give credence to the idea that the heavens carry divine meaning. Psalm 19 speaks clearly, declaring that the heavens proclaim God's glory, and their expanse reveals His handiwork. The sky is not silent. It communicates, it declares, and it invites interpretation not through superstition, but through awe. Throughout the centuries, scholars, rabbis, and early Christian thinkers have wrestled with the possible relationship between the breastplate stones and the signs above. Some have explored symbolic connections, while others have attempted literal pairings between tribes and constellations. Could the breastplate be more than a priestly item? Could it also be a cosmic diagram, a mirror of divine order above and divine purpose below? The mystery is far from resolved, but it persists because it speaks to something deeply human, the desire to understand how heaven and earth connect. If God truly ordered the stars and chose the stones, might they correspond? Might the breastplate and the zodiac form 2 halves of one divine design, revealed in stone and sky alike? The garments worn by the high priest were not mere symbols of office or tradition. They were designed with precision, each element crafted according to divine instruction. The ephod, the robe, the sash, the turban, every thread was purposeful. Yet among all these sacred items, the breastplate held a unique role. It was not only decorative or representative, it was functional. It served as a place of decision-making, a space where divine guidance was revealed. Exodus 28 gives a detailed account of how God instructed Moses to fashion this garment. The breastplate was to be made of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet threads, with fine linen skillfully woven. It was to be square when folded, a span in length and width, with gold settings holding 12 stones. But the instruction was more than aesthetic. It came with a command that Aaron would bear the names of the sons of Israel on his heart when he entered the holy place, as a continual memorial before the Lord. This placement over the heart is telling. The heart, in biblical thought, was not only the center of emotion, but of will, conscience, and connection to God. The stones did not rest on the shoulder, the seat of strength, but on the chest, the seat of communion. Each stone, engraved with a tribe's name, became a permanent reminder that the priest stood not for himself, but for the people. Yet it also opens the door to a deeper reading. If the breastplate mirrors the stars, could the high priest be standing before God not only as a representative of Israel, but of creation itself? The breastplate was also called the breastplate of judgment. Attached to it were the Urim and Thummim, mysterious instruments by which divine decisions were revealed. This transformed the garment into a vessel of communication, a link between heaven and earth. When the priest stood before the ark, he did so with 12 stones gleaming before the mercy seat, as though offering not only the tribes, but a microcosm of God's greater design. Sacred clothing in Scripture always pointed beyond fabric. Adam and Eve were clothed by God after the fall. Joseph's robe marked him as chosen. The mantle of Elijah passed to Elisha carried prophetic authority. Garments bore identity, function, and divine appointment. The high priest's vestments were no different, but elevated further by their association with glory and beauty. In this way, the breastplate was more than ornament, it was interface. It connected the earthly with the heavenly, bearing symbols of both tribal lineage and potentially cosmic truth. The 12 stones listed in Exodus 28 verses 17 through 20 are among the most debated artifacts in Scripture. Their ancient Hebrew names, translated over centuries into Greek, Latin, and modern languages, have been subject to varying identifications. The task of matching each Hebrew term with a known gemstone is not straightforward. Differences in language, regional availability, and historical usage have created a tangle of possibilities. And yet, each stone was hand-selected by divine instruction, which suggests that their meaning was significant from the very beginning. The first row is said to include sardius, topaz, and carbuncle. The second holds emerald, sapphire, and diamond. The third includes ligure, agate, and amethyst. The fourth and final row mentions beryl, onyx, and jasper. But these names, especially in older translations, often reflected Greek or Roman interpretations. The Hebrew terms odem, pitta, bereket, and others do not always align cleanly with modern gemology. Some stones, like shoham, traditionally rendered as onyx, may have referred to something entirely different. This linguistic ambiguity raises the question, were the names lost over time, or were they deliberately veiled? The fact that the precise identification of these stones has remained elusive through centuries of scholarship may not be accidental. The ambiguity might invite exploration rather than closure. Each stone's color, light refraction, and symbolic value carries layers of interpretation. For instance, amethyst, often linked with royalty and spiritual sobriety, may have had a specific connection to a tribe's character. Jasper, associated with endurance and stability, could symbolize divine consistency. But these are interpretations, not certainties. In many ancient cultures, stones were not only valued for their beauty, but believed to carry spiritual properties. In Egypt, Babylon, and Greece, certain gems were used for protection, healing, and revelation. The biblical use of stones was distinct. It did not suggest magical power, but divine appointment. Still, the use of gemstones on the high priest's chest echoes a widespread belief in the significance of the mineral world, suggesting that God was communicating through a language already understood in part by ancient peoples. The variation in translations across time and geography also highlights the challenge. The Septuagint and Vulgate render the stone names differently from the Masoretic text. Modern scholars continue to debate whether pitta is topaz or peridot, whether bereket refers to emerald or perhaps a greenish crystal. Despite these uncertainties, the list remains consistent in number and structure. This may imply that it is not the specific mineral that matters most, but the completeness of the 12, and the deliberate variety of color, clarity, and form, each one carrying a distinct reflection of divine beauty. The alignment between the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 signs of the zodiac has captivated both religious and esoteric thinkers for centuries. The symmetry is unmistakable. 12 tribes encamped around the tabernacle in a specific order, and 12 constellations form the ancient celestial circle. The question arises, did God intend these to correspond? Could each tribe reflect the traits and symbolism of a particular zodiac sign? Jewish tradition has long preserved connections between the tribes and the months of the year, which were often associated with signs in the heavens. In the Midrash and Talmud, discussions about tribal banners and their colors sometimes mirror known zodiacal associations. For example, the tribe of Judah, whose banner bore the image of a lion, naturally draws attention to Leo. Similarly, the tribe of Dan is associated with a serpent and sometimes with the eagle, raising parallels with Scorpio in its more ancient forms. These are not coincidences. They point to a framework of meaning that may go beyond cultural borrowing. The encampment order described in Numbers 2 positions the tribes in 4 groups of 3, surrounding the tabernacle in a precise arrangement. Some have suggested that this reflects not only order on earth, but an echo of heavenly patterns. If the Mazzaroth, the zodiac signs, are fixed in the heavens, could the 12 tribes mirror their flow on earth? The names, symbols, and temperaments of each tribe have been studied in this light. Zebulun, associated with seafaring, may align with Pisces. Issachar, known for study and burden-bearing, might correspond to Virgo. Christian interpreters in later centuries also explored these alignments, though with varying conclusions. Some viewed the zodiac not as a forbidden system, but as a kind of divine calendar. The 12 signs marked seasons in the heavens, just as the 12 tribes marked history on earth. From this perspective, the tribes become archetypes, each reflecting a distinct aspect of human experience, divine character, and cosmic order. Skeptics argue that such connections are forced or speculative, lacking hard textual confirmation. Yet the repeating pattern of 12 throughout Scripture encourages another look. The number appears not just with tribes and zodiac signs, but with apostles, gates, foundations, and months. This pattern may not be coincidental. It may reflect an underlying structure, a harmony embedded in both the people of God and the design of creation. Whether symbolic, prophetic, or literal, the parallels between tribe and sign challenge the observer to consider a deeper orchestration. The idea that the breastplate mirrors the heavens is rooted in an ancient belief shared by many cultures, that the visible sky reflects truths from the divine realm. Scripture supports this view in subtle but powerful ways. Genesis 1 verse 14 declares that God placed lights in the firmament for signs, seasons, days, and years. These were not arbitrary objects but intentional markers. The stars served as more than illumination. They were woven into the fabric of time and meaning. Psalm 19 captures the heartbeat of this concept. It opens with the declaration that the heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the work of His hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, night after night they reveal knowledge. The imagery is clear, the stars communicate, they are not silent. And if they speak, then what do they say? The breastplate, with its 12 stones, each distinct in color and quality, may reflect this heavenly language in physical form. If the stars above are placed in ordered signs, moving in rhythm across the firmament, then the stones below may be their earthly counterparts. The high priest, standing before God, becomes a living symbol of the cosmos, carrying both the names of Israel and the reflection of the skies over his heart. Some traditions, especially in mystical Judaism, explore the idea that each tribe not only corresponds to a stone and a name, but to an angel, a color, a constellation, and a direction. This layered symbolism points to a worldview in which all things are connected, where spiritual truth is not fragmented but unified. In this vision, the stones are more than representation. They are resonance. They embody the harmony between what is seen in the heavens and what is present in the sanctuary. The phrase, "as above, so below," does not originate from Scripture, yet its essence resonates through biblical imagery. The tabernacle itself was designed according to a heavenly pattern, shown to Moses on the mountain. Hebrews 8 verse 5 reminds us that the earthly sanctuary was a copy and shadow of the heavenly one. If the tabernacle mirrored a greater reality, then the items within it, the ark, the altar, the menorah, and the breastplate also participated in that reflection. The idea that stars above and stones below are part of one divine message opens the door to a deeper awe. It invites contemplation on a grander scale, where faith is not only a personal path, but a cosmic alignment. The stones worn by the high priest glimmered in candlelight, but they may have shimmered with starlight as well, echoes of a divine message, written in constellations and carried into the holy place on the chest of a man called to stand between heaven and earth. Long before modern astronomy charted the movement of the stars with mathematical precision, ancient civilizations gazed upward and saw meaning. They saw rhythm, structure, and intention. The 12-fold division of the heavens was not unique to Israel. It appears in Egyptian temples, in Babylonian records, in Greek philosophical thought. The recurrence of 12, whether in zodiac signs, calendar months, or sacred architecture, raises a compelling question. Did these cultures borrow from one another, or were they each reaching toward a shared truth written by the Creator into the sky itself? In Egypt, priests wore ceremonial collars embedded with stones, often inlays of turquoise, lapis lazuli, carnelian, and green feldspar. These ornaments were not merely decorative, they were aligned with spiritual beliefs about protection, order, and the afterlife. The famous Book of the Dead includes references to the stars as guides and to the constellations as sacred pathways. Babylonian astronomers charted celestial cycles with extraordinary detail, dividing the sky into 12 segments, each ruled by a constellation. Their records influenced Greek and later Roman understandings of the zodiac, and in turn, those systems were inherited by Western culture. Yet amid these similarities, Israel stood apart. The instructions for the high priest's garments did not emerge from stargazing but from direct divine command. This distinction is crucial. While neighboring cultures observed the heavens and inferred their meaning, Israel's priesthood was given their design from above. God told Moses precisely how the breastplate should look, what materials to use, and how to order the stones. The resemblance to other 12-fold systems may not point to imitation, but rather to convergence, a shared witness to a greater reality imprinted across nations. The prophet Isaiah speaks of God declaring the end from the beginning, from ancient times things not yet done. If God truly revealed himself to all people, then echoes of his truth may be found even in distant lands. Paul, in Romans 1, writes that God's invisible qualities are clearly seen, being understood from what has been made. Creation itself bears witness. And that includes the stars. That includes the symmetry in stone. It suggests that even when nations drifted into idolatry, the patterns they followed may have originated in divine intention, later obscured by human interpretation. This possibility reframes how we view ancient cosmologies. Rather than dismissing them as mere myth, we can ask whether they retained fragments of a once pure understanding. The zodiac, the circle of 12 constellations, becomes not an invention but a preservation, a remnant of God's handwriting across the sky. And if the high priest's breastplate matches that pattern, then the cultures of the earth may have glimpsed, however dimly, what Israel was shown directly. In this way, the stones of the breastplate may be part of a cosmic code, not hidden in secrecy, but embedded in plain sight, waiting for eyes trained by reverence rather than superstition to recognize their message. The moment the zodiac is mentioned in the context of Scripture, many draw a line of caution. Astrology, after all, is condemned. Isaiah 47 verses 13 through 14 contains a sharp rebuke. The astrologers, stargazers, and monthly prognosticators will be as stubble consumed by fire. The practice of divination through celestial movements is treated as a betrayal of trust in God. The stars were not meant to guide human decisions through speculation or fate. They were created by God, not as masters over man, but as servants of time and testimony. Yet Scripture also affirms the stars as signs. Genesis 1 verse 14 speaks of lights placed in the sky for signs and for seasons. Psalm 104 describes the moon marking appointed times. Job is asked if he can bind the chains of Pleiades or loosen the cords of Orion. These references do not dismiss the stars. They elevate them as part of God's ordered universe. The issue, then, is not with the stars themselves, but with how they are used. Astrology assumes the stars dictate human behavior, that destiny is written in the sky apart from divine revelation. This belief shifts trust away from God and toward impersonal forces. It is a distortion of the truth. But astronomy, the observation of the heavens as a testimony to order, reflects the biblical perspective. The stars are not oracles, but signs. Their cycles declare the glory of God, not the fate of man. If the 12 stones on the high priest's breastplate correspond with the zodiac, it does not imply endorsement of astrology. Rather, it suggests a deeper harmony between divine design and creation. Just as the rainbow is a sign of covenant, just as the Sabbath marks a rhythm in time, the constellations may mark spiritual truths, not in ways that predict personal fortune, but in ways that reinforce divine structure. God may have written messages into the stars to confirm His sovereignty, not to replace His voice. The early Hebrews were not instructed to avoid the heavens. They were told not to worship the hosts of heaven. The distinction is critical. God never revoked the stars' place as signs. He only forbade their misuse. The same caution applies to the stones on the breastplate. If they echo celestial truths, they must be handled with reverence, not curiosity. They must point back to the Creator, not forward to self-serving predictions. In this way, the zodiac, rightly understood, can become a lens of worship rather than a tool of divination, a reflection of God's order rather than an idol of human invention. In the letter to the Hebrews, Jesus is called the great high priest who has passed through the heavens. He is not merely a continuation of the Levitical order, but its fulfillment, its perfection. Hebrews 4 verses 14 through 16 describes him as able to sympathize with weakness, offering access to the throne of grace. He carries not just the names of tribes, but the burdens of all humanity. And if the earthly high priest bore 12 stones as a sign of intercession, what then does Christ bear as the eternal intercessor? The idea of Jesus wearing a breastplate is not explicit in Scripture, but the imagery remains powerful. He is described in Revelation as clothed in a robe with a golden sash, walking among the lampstands. He is the Lamb standing before the throne, the mediator of a new covenant. If he fulfills the role of high priest, then all that the garments represented reaches its highest form in him. The stones, once fixed in gold and carried into the holy place, may now be reflected in his cosmic authority. Jesus does not merely intercede for one nation. He unites heaven and earth. Colossians 1 verse 16 speaks of all things created through him and for him, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. This includes stars and stones alike. If the 12 stones reflect a divine order, and the zodiac maps the sky in 12 segments, then Christ stands as the axis where meaning converges, where creation finds its center. In this light, the stones are not relics of a past ritual, but signs pointing forward. The high priest once stood before the ark in a tent, bearing names carved in gemstones. Now Christ stands before the Father, bearing wounds that speak louder than any inscription. His intercession is not seasonal. It is eternal. His connection to the cosmos is not symbolic. It is essential. He upholds all things by the word of his power. The 12 tribes represented the people of God. The 12 stones symbolized unity and identity. If the zodiac, in its redeemed form, echoes this pattern, then Christ holds the stars not as instruments of fate, but as reflections of his glory. He commands the constellations not to dictate destiny, but to declare dominion. In Jesus, the true high priest, the heavenly and earthly are reconciled. The mystery of the breastplate finds its answer not only in Exodus, but in the Gospel. The one who bore the names of 12 tribes now bears the names of all who call upon him. The early church inherited a world saturated with astrological belief. In Rome, Greece, and the East, the stars were seen as faithful forces. Horoscopes were consulted. Natal charts were crafted. Temples aligned with celestial bodies. Into this context, Christianity brought a message of divine sovereignty. God alone determines the future, not the stars. Yet not all early Christian thinkers dismissed the heavens outright. Some saw in the constellations a deeper reflection of divine order, a cosmic calendar proclaiming truth. Origen, one of the earliest theologians of Alexandria, acknowledged the stars' role in declaring the glory of God. While cautious of astrology, he believed the heavens contained wisdom for those who could read them rightly. He wrote that the firmament reveals mysteries through signs, though not as omens to control behavior. Augustine, more skeptical, warned against trusting stars for knowledge of human life. Yet even he affirmed that the heavens are the work of God and serve His purposes. The zodiac in early Christian thought was sometimes viewed as a corrupted map, a system that had once pointed to truth, but had been misused by pagan cultures. Like the bronze serpent lifted in the wilderness, what was once good could be turned to evil if removed from its proper context. Some church fathers speculated that the 12 signs might relate to the 12 apostles, or to the 12 gates of the heavenly city in Revelation. These connections were not doctrine, but reflections, attempts to understand how the structure of creation mirrored the structure of redemption. The use of stars as markers of time was never rejected by the Church. Easter is calculated by the lunar cycle. The equinoxes and solstices shape the liturgical calendar. Cathedrals were built with precise astronomical alignments. These acts suggest that while astrology was condemned, astronomy was embraced, not as a science of control, but as a servant of sacred rhythm. What the early Church wrestled with remains relevant. Can the stars be part of divine revelation without becoming idols? Can the zodiac be reclaimed as a sacred circle rather than a superstitious chain? These questions continue to stir thought. And perhaps, if the 12 stones on the breastplate align with the signs in the sky, the early Church was sensing something true. A message written not in horoscopes but in harmony, not in prediction, but in pattern. The zodiac may have once been a sacred gift, distorted by misuse, but never stripped of its origin. And in the hands of the Creator, even the stars declare His order, waiting for hearts aligned with truth to see beyond fear, beyond fate, and into the majesty of a design too perfect to ignore. The closing pages of the Bible return to the number 12 with unmistakable emphasis. Revelation 21 unveils the vision of the New Jerusalem, a city descending from heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. It is a city not only of glory, but of perfect order. 12 gates, each bearing the name of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 foundations, each inscribed with the name of one of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And on these foundations are 12 precious stones, described in detail and dazzling in color. The echoes of the high priest's breastplate are unmistakable. Revelation 21 verses 19 through 20 list the foundation stones: jasper, sapphire, chalcedony, emerald, sardonyx, sardius, chrysolite, beryl, topaz, chrysoprase, jacinth, and amethyst. These are not merely decorative elements in the architecture of heaven. Their inclusion invites reflection on something far deeper, a continuity of symbolism from Exodus to eternity. The stones of the breastplate represented tribal identity, divine memory, intercession, and sacred presence. Now, in the eternal city, they form the very base of what is everlasting. The correspondence between the two lists, the stones of Exodus and those of Revelation, has fascinated scholars for centuries. While not a perfect match in order or terminology, there are shared names, recurring colors, and common materials. This parallel suggests more than coincidence. It speaks of fulfillment. What once rested on the chest of a priest now forms the foundation of the eternal dwelling of God with humanity. The temporary has become permanent. The pattern has become reality. And yet, the stones are not the only link. The structure of the city itself reinforces the cosmic symmetry. 12 gates, oriented to the 4 cardinal directions, 3 per side, mirroring the tribal encampment around the tabernacle in the wilderness. The city is a cube, its length, width, and height equal, reminiscent of the most holy place within the temple. It is not simply a city, it is a sanctuary, a temple made of time and light, of name and number. Every element, every measurement, every jewel declares order, unity, and divine intentionality. What began with a breastplate worn by a man in a tent concludes with a city descending from the heavens. The message remains the same. God is present, God remembers, and God dwells among His people. The stones shine not only with beauty, but with meaning. They declare that the names of the faithful are not forgotten, that the tribes are not lost, and that what was once a shadow in gold thread and gemstone has become an eternal reality of light and glory. In this, the stones and the stars find their completion, not in isolation, but in unity, in the unshakable foundations of the city of God. Gemstones are more than beautiful objects. They interact with light in unique and mesmerizing ways. Each one refracts, reflects, and bends light according to its structure, composition, and clarity. Some split white light into dazzling spectra. Others absorb and release light with subtle shifts in hue. This interaction between matter and light is not random. It is governed by physical laws, and yet it carries with it an aura of mystery. Could it be that the 12 stones on the high priest's breastplate were chosen not only for their appearance or symbolism, but for the way they transmit and transform light? In recent years, scientists and theologians alike have begun to explore the idea that creation communicates through frequency, vibration, and resonance. Everything in existence moves, even at the microscopic level. Light, in its purest form, is vibration. Color is frequency made visible. And gemstones, each formed under intense pressure and time, have unique structures that interact with these frequencies. They are not just markers of value or decoration. They are vessels of energy, reflections of deeper laws woven into the fabric of creation. In the context of the breastplate, this suggests a fascinating possibility. If the high priest stood before God wearing 12 stones, and each one carried a unique vibrational fingerprint, then the breastplate may have functioned not just as a symbolic item, but as an active conduit of divine communication. The Urim and Thummim, placed within the breastplate, were used to receive answers from God. How this happened remains unclear, but perhaps the stones themselves played a role, not through magic, but through resonance. The alignment of light, color, and order may have created an atmosphere where divine guidance could be received with clarity. Scripture speaks often of light as a symbol of divine truth. Psalm 119 verse 105 says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." Jesus is described as the light of the world. The Transfiguration revealed him in radiance, his clothes shining brighter than the sun. Light is not only visual, it is revelatory. It exposes, it reveals, it clarifies. And if the breastplate was filled with stones that harnessed and reflected light, then it became an object not only of memory and identity, but of illumination. This hidden language of light may extend even further. The zodiac signs, if rightly interpreted, also move through patterns of light in the sky. The constellations appear in different forms as the Earth orbits the Sun, marking time, seasons, and sacred appointments. The correspondence between these celestial lights and the gemstone lights on the breastplate may form a dialogue between heaven and earth. Light from above, refracted below. A cycle of testimony written in stars and echoed in stones. Not to replace Scripture, but to magnify its truth. Not to replace God's voice, but to reflect its echo in creation. If such a language exists, it is not deciphered through technique or ritual, but through wonder. It is heard in stillness, seen in reverence, and felt in alignment with the Creator's heart. The stones were placed in gold settings, held tightly in a breastplate that covered the heart. Their brilliance was not random, their arrangement was not cosmetic. Each one may have sung a silent song, a vibration of divine intent, captured in light and color, waiting to be understood not by calculation, but by worship. For all the complexity of stones and stars, symbols and structures, the question remains, what does this reveal about the human heart? If God wrote messages in the heavens and selected gemstones for his priest to wear, then the mystery is not distant. It is deeply personal. The breastplate was designed not merely for ceremony, but for remembrance. The names of the tribes were engraved on stones, carried over the heart, brought into the most sacred place. This is more than representation. It is intimacy. It is identity. Each person belongs to a story far greater than themselves. The movement of the stars across the sky, the shimmer of light through amethyst or sapphire, these are not abstract beauties. They are reflections of a creator who made everything with precision and purpose, and that includes every human life. Just as the tribes were remembered by name, engraved into radiant stones, each person is known, each soul is seen. Not vaguely, but specifically. Not as one of many, but as one of one. The connection between the breastplate and the zodiac invites reflection not on fate, but on alignment. Not with impersonal constellations, but with divine order. The stars do not control your destiny, but they may point to a creator who does. The stones do not define your worth, but they may echo a value placed on you long before your birth. The message is not about predicting what will happen. It is about remembering who you are. In a world obsessed with identity, the breastplate offers a different vision. Identity is not found in trends, titles, or self-declared labels. It is found in being engraved, named, remembered, carried. The high priest bore the names of the tribes into the presence of God. Jesus, the ultimate high priest, bears your name before the Father. Not as a statistic, but as a person. Not as a mistake, but as a masterpiece. The stones shine because of the light they carry. In the same way, your life shines when it reflects the light of the one who made you. To look at the stars is to remember the vastness of God's design. To study the stones is to marvel at the care in His detail. But to understand their message is to come face to face with love. A love that organizes the cosmos yet knows every heart. A love that placed 12 stones on a breastplate and 12 constellations in the sky, so that nothing would be without meaning, and no one would be forgotten. The stones may be ancient, the stars may be distant, but the message is near. You are part of a divine pattern. You are remembered, you are named, you are loved. From the first light of Genesis to the final radiance of Revelation, the Bible reveals a universe steeped in divine intentionality. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is without purpose. The sun and moon, the stars and stones, the garments of priests and the foundations of cities, all are woven into a single narrative. It is a narrative of order, of beauty, of memory, and of presence. And through this narrative, God speaks. Not only through written words, but through the very fabric of the world He made. The 12 stones on the breastplate of the high priest stand as a testimony to identity and intercession. They declare that God knows His people by name, that He carries them close, that He remembers. Each gem, carefully chosen and placed over the heart, reflects the light of divine love and covenant. Yet these stones also whisper of something more. The stars above, the signs in the heavens, the great cosmic rhythm that pulses with sacred purpose. The zodiac, so often misunderstood or misused, may in fact echo a design as ancient as Eden, not as a tool of prediction or control, but as a framework of time, a cycle of reflection, a canvas upon which the Creator wrote the seasons of redemption. 12 tribes, 12 signs, 12 gates, 12 foundations. The pattern repeats with deliberate precision. Each repetition reinforces the message that God is a God of order, not chaos, of revelation, not confusion, of closeness, not distance. And all of it, every color, every constellation, every engraved name points toward Christ. He is the center, the true high priest, the one who holds all things together in heaven and on earth. In Him, the stars find their voice, and the stones find their brilliance. In Him, the mysteries are not erased, but fulfilled. The veil is lifted, the symbols come alive. The cosmic and the personal become one. So when we look to the heavens or meditate on the breastplate's gems, we are invited into wonder. A wonder that does not end in speculation, but in worship. A wonder that opens the heart, renews the mind, and draws the soul into alignment with the one who made all things good. The message is clear and resounding. His glory is not hidden. It is etched in creation, written in light, and carried in the heart of the one who believes. If this journey stirred something in you, then let it move further. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next exploration of biblical mystery and meaning. Like the video to let others know it spoke to you. Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your reflections, your questions, your insights. And most importantly, share this message with someone close to you. Whether it's a friend, a family member, or someone searching for hope, pass it on. Let the light reflected in these ancient stones and stars continue to shine through you.